Commander Shepard has been recovered. The Lazarus Project will proceed as planned.
Welcome to the Lazarus Project podcast. This is episode 14, Mass Effect podcast discussing its characters, lore, theory, and opinion. Podcast is recorded live in the Ploppy 54 Gaming Discord server, so come join us there to listen to the raw, unedited version. All the details that you need can be found in the show notes. My name is Tim, also known as Ploppy 54, and joining me today is my co-host,
Me, Craig. Yeah, hello.
Hello. In this episode, we're going to be talking all things Liara. I'm going to do a bit of a character trait on her, look at her appearances in all three games and the comic, and the DLC as well that she's been in as well. So we'll be giving you our thoughts on her. But first, it's the news.
Welcome to Citadel Newsnet. I'm Emily Wong.
Do we have any news?
I was waiting to ask you that.
Didn't even think of that. There was a post I saw as well that went a bit nuts. One person had said that the internet went crazy when they showed Miranda's butt in that scene, and then everybody is absolutely praising the bare sex that you can have in Baldur's Gate 3, and they're like, "Where's the logic? Why is this completely different than that?" So I kind of see what they were getting at, but on the flip side of that, there was when they removed it and they kind of lifted the camera angles for the legendary edition. I
Yeah,
can see why they've done that as well. It was
well, I mean, it's two very different cases as well. Like, I feel like romance has its place in a game, but just obscurely showing butt shots when a character's telling you about her sister going missing, it just,
it was
to
a
me,
bit
it
out of
just kind
place,
of,
wasn't it? Out of
yeah.
context, wasn't it?
I will be honest. If anything, I found it a bit distracting. Like,
I
but
kind of get what they were trying to go. That they were visualizing that she's supposed to be the perfect woman and she's got the perfect curves and
yeah, but we can see her body without the camera focusing on her butt.
fair point.
So that I honestly wasn't expecting you to start talking about Miranda's butt when we brought this up. But yeah, it actually says on PC Gamer, launch weekend has seen Baldur's Gate 3 break into the top 10 all-time concurrent player counts on Steam, with 700,000 players on August 5th, 2023.
That is impressive.
Yeah, and I think they said to somebody on their team, I think it was marketing or something, but they said to the members of their team to set their expectations for 100,000 if they were lucky, which I just think is kind of funny when you think about like the fact they got 8 times that basically. But yeah, it's crazy because I mean, another YouTuber I was watching actually, he said you just don't expect that kind of thing from like a hardcore RPG. Like it's not mainstream. It's not. I mean, it's kind of mainstream with the budget that it had, but apparently it was like crowdfunded or something, and like it was apparently It was apparently Microsoft offered to buy it, but they refused because they wanted the game to be one specific way, and I think because it was this specific way, people kind of some developers, I'd imagine, like Microsoft, had an expectation that it would just be for a smaller, more niche audience. But I think this just kind of shows that the RPG player base, like, is more open-minded than you imagine. Like, I think players are actually a lot more open-minded, or maybe it's just the fact that a lot of D&D players played it or are playing it. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, even things like the whole narrative aspect of it as well that's been done. I mean, you've got your like it's almost like your Witcher kind of side stories that there was, one review that I was saying where you make a choice and you save a character's life, and then a couple of hours later, that character then shows up in another city that you go to, who's then got another quest for you, which you wouldn't have got if you didn't save their life. And that quest then feeds back into the main quest, um, because of some decisions that you could possibly make, which then leads to the original character that you saved in the first place having a follow-up quest to it. And it's like how that all intertwines, and it's not just oh yeah, here, go and find 6 bottles of whiskey for me. That it completely, the none of these kind of fetch quest nonsense. It's all interwoven, but it depends on your choices throughout the entire story. So there's going to be avenues that are completely cut off to you if you didn't make the right choice.
How much of it have you played so far?
Um, Literally just like
Oh, okay.
the opening segment. Are you playing it as well?
No, I do
No.
want to. But I just wondered if, because it sounded like you were quite knowledgeable in the game, so I just
No,
wondered.
no, not at all.
Um, but I have heard that it's got more than one way to approach like a situation where you're talking to people and everything. Like, and I feel like that's just another. It's like we were saying earlier with Fallout. Like the minute you add a voice protagonist, you're limiting yourself a little bit more.
Yeah,
And apparently, this game really thrives on the fact that it's not voiced because the facial animations are so much better and the different ways you can approach a situation. And depending on the combination you choose, you can wind up making the wrong choice and causing a fight to happen and things. And um, there's just so much variety as well from what I've heard. And I mean, I would like to say I'm not surprised it's done well, but to be honest, like I do think RPGs are a little underrated in gaming in general. But it's really nice to see that it's doing so well, and I think it deserves it from what I've been hearing. And maybe when the price goes down, I'll buy it. But at the same time, if it's as expensive as it is, and that many people are playing it, then all power to the developers because
yeah.
no doubt this is really going to help them with any future projects they work on.
It has made me kind of want to go back because I did start Divinity Original Sin, and it was one of those games where I was like, oh, I don't really know if I want to get into it or not. But I
Yeah.
can see me picking it up once I've done this and trying giving that another go because it's the same sort of. It looks very similar and it has a lot of the same mechanics in it.
Does it kind of have some of those BioWare elements, do you think? Like, because I've heard, I mean, from what I've seen, the gameplay I've seen, the conversations, the romance is very BioWare-y.
Yeah,
Is that something that's new for them? Like, or do you know if they've done that in like Divinity?
I think they did. They did some of it in Divinity 2 because that got high praise, and that's apparently a lot better than the first one. But
Okay.
this is apparently um, this is kind of they've kind of taken what they've learned from those 2 games and then just ramped it ramped it right up.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like more content comes out of it because I mean, I don't think it's an entirely online game, but like any and every game kind of get updates nowadays. I mean, I know it's got co-op, but it's not like a online MMO type situation.
Yeah, yeah, I think you can play co-op on it, but again, it's not something I'll be doing. Any other news?
There's a re-release for Red Dead Redemption. To be honest, when
Yeah,
yeah, you've heard about that, have you?
yeah, I've heard that's upset quite a lot of people, hasn't it? Because everyone was hoping for a remake in the Red Dead Redemption 2 style.
Yeah. The thing is,
And
though, I think it looks nice just the way it is.
yeah, yeah, for its time, it was really good. I mean, when you put it side by side with Red Redemption 2, then yeah, it looks a bit dated, but
Yeah.
It's still very playable. It's still
Yeah, I enjoy playing Red Dead Redemption. It's the second one I actually struggle with. That's a whole different reason. It's just slow. But I do feel like remakes have their place in certain games, but for Red Dead, it just doesn't feel right to me. If they did a remake of, like, if they actually did a remake of the original 3 Grand Theft Auto games instead of a remaster, I think that could have been amazing. Like,
yeah.
rebuilding all of these different locations, like Vice City and whatever, like, that could have been amazing. And, like, if they remade Grand Theft Auto 4 even, like, those large-scale cities and not lived in, but, like, those thriving environments, I think those are the ones that you can really see a difference if they remake them. But, like, if you're talking about, like, a desert in the Wild West, like, who's going to really care if the dust or the sand looks slightly more realistic? Or, the wooden building looks slightly more realistic? Like, I feel like you can do a lot more if it's a more modern environment. I feel like it's a lot more warranted if there's a lot more in the environment to really appreciate.
Yeah, if it's just a bit barren with nothing to do, it kind of takes you out of the moment as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Red Dead Redemption 1 is barren. I just mean like there's just not very much to make more real to begin with. Like, I mean, it's not. I'm trying to say it's not barren, but I'm kind of describing it as if it is. But like all these wooden buildings and things, as opposed to tall skyscrapers and helicopters and tons of people, and I just feel like, do we know if they're even re-releasing Red Dead for like full price? Like, I'd
Oh
imagine they
yeah,
are. Yeah,
yeah, they are. Yeah, it's it comes bundled with the Undead Nightmare, the DLC,
yeah,
but there's no multiplayer, and yeah, I think it's about £60, or
that's
what's that? About
ridiculous.
$70-80.
That's mental.
Again, again, and all it is just a port, a PlayStation 4 port
Yeah, I think it's for Switch as well.
and
But
Switch.
yeah, it's part of the reason why I never got a Switch, to be honest. It's just because it's filled with Pokemon games that to me feel overpriced because it doesn't really feel like they needed to put very much effort in to begin with. Because you look at like these massive, crazy graphic games that take a long time to make. Pokemon to me doesn't seem like it takes that long, and then they charge you like 50 quid. And then the other games that they've got are the ports that are just older games that are re-released and for a lot higher price. This constant re-release at a high price is just, it makes absolutely no sense. Because I know some games
That's it.
nowadays, some games nowadays are getting more expensive, which is fair enough. But if you're just re-releasing the same game, there's absolutely no reason like why you would charge somebody that much,
No,
other than just we
no,
want to make
that's
tons
just
of
a
money.
cash grab, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah. Well, it
and the
probably doesn't.
popularity of the game as well.
Yeah. It's just Rockstar trying to make up for the fact that the only game that they've released since 2013 is Red Dead 2. I mean, to be fair, 2013 is only 10 years ago, but at the same time, a lot of mainstream like developers manage to get a game out once every 4 years,
I
unless you're
mean, I
BioWare.
suppose development time's getting longer now, isn't it, with new technology and stuff? But
Yeah. And I mean, BioWare's at least got a reason for how long they've been taking. Like, I know BioWare's had a lot of development trouble and a lot of just trouble with the team changing and everything. But I don't think Rockstar's got. I mean, I suppose the person in charge of Rockstar left, but I think that was pretty far into what they conceived as GTA 6. But anyway, this is a whole other tangent, I think.
and then obviously Starfield is out in about 4 weeks' time, as of recording. Actually, by the time this one's edited and released, it's probably already out.
You have such little faith in me. I'll just to prove you wrong now. I've got to get it done before then.
So
Apparently, there's early access. Apparently, there's early access on the 1st of September. I don't know how you get early access, but
yeah, you got to
that's
buy
cool.
the like super deluxe version, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you get it from the 1st of September. But if you're waiting like me, that's just waiting for the Game Pass release, It's on the 6th of September, I think it is.
Cool. Yeah, I'll look forward to it now that I've finally finished Fallout 4.
Welcome to Citadel Newsnet. I'm Emily Wong.
So, for those of you who don't know, Liara Tassoni is an Asari researcher who spent the last 50 years of her life studying the protein technology and its culture, specializing in the protein extinction. She was born in Thessia in 2077, making her the only 106 barely adult in Asari. She also has a great deal of insight into the proteins, is a highly trained user of biotics, and she has potential romance interest for either male or female shepherd. She goes on a bit of a journey, a bit of a character arc, and changes significantly from Mass Effect 1 through to Mass Effect 2 and then to Mass Effect 3, the Redemption comic book trilogy, and has her own DLC in Mass Effect 2, in which she becomes the Shadow Broker, and then for Mass Effect, he rejoins the crew for the finale. She can also be heard in Mass Effect Andromeda as well in some voice recordings. So, what's your overall? If you was to write it in a tweet, what would be your tweet of Liara Tassoni?
Liara is, I don't know, how do you like think of a tweet off the top of your head?
Basically,
She's
just a very quick, short summary of what you currently think of Liara.
she's a great symbol of the games, I think. I think she's a very like she's just kind of she's symbolic in like everything that Shepard is in those games. I think in a big way. I think in a really weird way, she's kind of the way you can see Shepard without seeing Shepard, because obviously anyone Shepard could be anyone. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like she's a reflection of Shepard's experiences because she changes across those games because of Shepard. That would probably be the most like out there tweet ever. But like that's a way I think of explaining her. But like I don't know, she's a dependable character who changes quite drastically across those games.
She
But I
does change
suppose you
quite
could say
drastically,
it's a
doesn't she?
yeah. I would say it's not like unbelievably drastically, but like I think you could sell it as like a character arc kind of thing. I think if you don't read the comics, it doesn't feel natural. But I think from rereading the comics, I think I can kind of see the leap in how she changes. What would your summary be?
So mine would be one of my favorite characters. Has a bit of a 180 in her character arc, but love where she ends up from where she started.
Okay.
I think that's where I'd go with that. But yeah, I mean, I generally do like her. I know there's quite a lot of people. She's a bit like Marmite, I think, isn't she? She either people hate her or they love her. There's no kind of
Yeah.
middle ground,
I
and I
also
kind of get that the developers do seem to kind of push her onto you.
yeah. I do think a little bit that whilst the developers do push her onto you, I do think a lot of the companions in Mass Effect 1, so it's not just a Liara problem. Like a lot of the Mass Effect 1 companions can not be there at a certain point in the story. Like a lot of them can be maybes, as I think Mac Walters put it. Like Ashley and Caden, past Vermeer, whenever you do Vermeer, they could just not be in your party at all, not just be dead.
Yeah.
And that automatically limits how much they can be involved in cutscenes and in the story. And I think it's similar with Liara because you can wait until like the mission before the last one before you recruit her. I think thinking on it actually, I think her and Tally are the only ones you have to recruit. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously you start with Caden and Ashley, but
yeah, you've got to have a certain amount of. You've got to be able to have 2 crew members, haven't you? So I think you're forced to have Tally, aren't you? But if you
Yeah.
if you kill Rex, and then Caden dies, so you've still got Garrus and Tally, and then you get Liara right at the very end or something. So
Can you hear me out there? I'm trapped. I need help.
Are you real? Oh no, don't be stupid, Liara. Humans do not come here, you're hallucinating.
Any suggestions on how we can help?
Of course, what good is a hallucination if it can't offer false hope?
it depends, I suppose. It depends if I'm going to romance her or not, or when I pick her up. Because I do like the fact that if you leave her there in that first game, the longest possible time, that she goes slightly crazy, thinks that you're hallucinations, and then when you're back on the ship, she's asking all these questions. You're like, yeah, I know that. I know this. We know that. We know this. And she's like, oh, okay. So you don't really need my help then.
Yeah, it does kind of feel a bit strange, doesn't it? Like it feels a bit out of place if you just, because in a way it makes more sense if you recruit her earlier and she helps you to figure this stuff out because she's got kind of expertise.
Yeah.
But then, like, yeah, having her show up instead and just be like, oh, okay, these are things that are happening. Okay, yeah. This is all quite a lot of information to process. I think she kind of what she said. But I'd imagine in your first playthrough, you didn't wait to recruit her. You just kind of recruited her straight away.
Yeah. Yeah, that was because it started from the very start, isn't it? You know, here's your few leads, but you really probably want to go and get her first because she knows what she's talking about. So it's like, yeah, okay, I will get her then.
Yeah, I didn't listen to them. I will be honest, I didn't really like Mass Effect 1 can sometimes be a lot to take in, and sometimes it's hard to just kind of listen through a lot of the conversation, a lot of the cutscenes. So I wasn't really paying attention, and it just kind of looked like, sorry, scientist, don't really care. And then all the other stuff was like, go to this planet, go to this planet. I don't know why that other stuff was more appealing, but yeah, I waited and then I recruited her later on. And to be honest, the whole thing about her going crazy, that was just kind of annoying to me. I was just kind of like, why? I didn't catch on until later on, where I was just like, why are you insistent that I'm a hallucination? This is weird. This is annoying. And then as I was like, I think leaving the building or something, fighting my way out, I was like, oh my god, this must be because I didn't recruit her until the end, or I did all of these missions first. That's really quite clever. Um, but it did kind of annoy me, to be honest. And I think she was my romance as well. So it was even weirder that, she'd known me for like 5 minutes before she wanted to get into bed with my shepherd. So it's it's a little bit weird that you can recruit her so late into the game, but at the same time it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there is. If you leave it too late, then you don't have enough cutscenes for it, and you can't romance her.
Yeah. I will be honest, actually. I think what I did was I did pad out a little bit by actually doing side content.
Yeah,
I usually generally try to avoid side content, but maybe that says a little too much about me if I do side content just so I can romance somebody. I don't know. It did feel a little bit like it was a lot of her just being an innocent Asari in the first game
yeah,
and just kind of being there a little bit,
yeah. I
which
mean,
I
she
think can be
just.
said for a lot of them.
I mean, when you if you really want to see how her personality changed, then you do really need to read the redemption. Is it redemption? It is redemption, yeah.
Yeah.
Because she starts off as being quite her naive self, but she very quickly dispatches like 3 Taurians with the biotics.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that she's got a lot of the naivety about her still, but you can see her toughening up throughout the comic series, and she gets betrayed quite a few times and double crossed quite a few times, and that all adds to her. By the time Mass Effect 2 rolls around, she's quoting her mother by saying that she will, flay people with their mind.
Have you faced an Asari commando unit before? Few humans have. I'll make it simple. Either you pay me, or I flay you alive. With my mind.
Yeah, I think she definitely just has a lot more interaction with people. Like, I think her obsession with Shepard kind of forces her to talk to a lot more people
Yeah.
and go to a lot more places like Omega to get information about Shepard's body and whatever. And that helps her a little bit to, like, she's in a situation where she's kind of forced to talk to people to find information and whatever. And that kind of helps her a little bit. But I also think, and this might, I mean, I'd kind of get somebody else's take on this just to kind of see different thoughts on the side of Liara. But somebody said that it seemed like Liara's inspired by Shepard, and I thought that was a really great way of putting it. Like, Shepard's kind of like a parental figure that Liara needs. Like, and it's really weird when you romance her after saying that, but like, she doesn't have anybody else after she meets Shepard. Like, after her mother dies, she's just got Shepard, and it kind of makes sense that she becomes obsessed. And she kind of learns little bits here and there about like what bravery is and heroism and whatever from Shepard. And as soon as the Normandy blows up, everybody else in the crew has somebody to go back to, and Liara doesn't. And I don't know, there's something quite sad there, but I think her actions in the comic make all too much sense, to be honest, if nothing else.
Yeah. Well, so I can't really remember the other ones. I think she was in a couple of other ones, wasn't she, as well?
Yeah, I did read a few recently. There was one she was in that was after she became the Shadow Broker, and she's basically trying to get to. It's like it's a bridge between her being the Shadow Broker and her working at the Mars Archives. So she finds out that there's an archive on Mars that they can get information on or something, and she gets led to a different archive before she finds out. Actually, I think the Mars archive, I don't know. Anyway, I think she finds a different archive that then leads her to the Mars archive, I believe. But yeah, she ends up like following this Drell who leads her down to this like underwater base or something, and she finds this information, and she actually speaks to the Elusive Man again, which is really cool actually, because she has a few interactions with the Elusive Man that you don't even know about if you just play the games. Like,
Yeah.
she kind of, I think she goes to the Elusive Man's base in those initial comics that she's in. And it's quite cool actually that she's got a bit of a vendetta against the Elusive Man as well. And it does actually kind of make me think it would have been cooler to see her interact with the Elusive Man more in the games.
Shepard.
Elusive Man.
Fascinating race, the Protheans. They left all this for us to discover. But we
I don't know, yeah, in that other comic, she basically finds the Mars archives, and she's kind of in a bit of a rush to find any information she can for Hackett. And I believe there was a conversation that the Elusive Man has with her about how her methods have changed. You know, the brokers' methods have changed, and obviously the brokers are not as ruthless as they used to be, because it used to not be Liara, and her agents are questioning her and are being less loyal because they're not intimidated by her as the original broker, as they might have been with the original broker. I think it's really interesting that, you know, whilst she has changed across those games and she was the kind of person who hunted down the broker, you know, she still maintains that kindness and that heart. And as much as she kind of needs to be ruthless to keep those agents with her, she doesn't let it change her.
No, well, I mean, I suppose she doesn't really, but I don't know. She gets quite stressed in 3, doesn't she?
Yeah, but
There's a lot of
she
pressure, isn't it? She has a lot of agents under her control, and she says, "Give me 5 minutes, and I can start a war." Which I suppose, if you've got that kind of power, you could easily let it go to your head, couldn't you?
yeah, but I don't think she actually would start a war.
No.
But yeah, well, as we were saying though, I do think her kind of original obsession kind of makes sense into how she changes in the second game.
Well, I suppose they needed to as well, because they wouldn't have any reason for her to be in the rest of the game if she just stayed as the naive young archaeologist, would there? So they needed to give her a new purpose, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, digging up old ruins is kind of
It works for
obsolete
the first
when,
game, that's for sure.
yeah, in a war situation where you're just trying to keep everything alive, you're not really kind of digging up the past, you're just trying to save what you've got at the moment. So, yeah, she kind of did need to make that change for a war, you know, and there's not really a place for an archaeologist there.
Yeah. What did you think about them not having her as a crew member in 2?
Um, I thought it was a really good way of doing it, to be honest. I think from both Shepard's point of view and from Liara's point of view, it was needed. Like, you needed to be in a situation where, and this is going to sound really, really bad on my side of things, but I'm purely viewing it from like an objective point of view. But the player needed to explore their options, I think, in terms of romance, because you're so wedged into, oh, you get the space racist, or you get Liara, or you get the horny Canadian, or you get Liara. You're kind of pushed, as we've said, to pick Liara, and then in the second game, you're in a situation where it's not really cheating. Like, it's kind of established that some time has passed, like 3 years or something stupid. I know it doesn't feel that way for Shepard. It depends, I guess, on how hardcore you are being about it. But enough time has passed where it's rational for Shepard to see somebody else, and you can look to Jack or Miranda or so many other different kinds of characters that leaving Liara alone and to do her own thing is a really great way for, you know, the player to have a chance to get to know other people in a more intimate way.
Yeah. I must admit I was quite disappointed at first, but I really did enjoy the Shadow Broker DLC. I thought it was absolutely fantastic what they did with it in that.
Yeah,
And it was a nice treat to have her back as a crewmate just for that DLC.
yeah. I also just think after how obsessive she becomes about bringing Shepard back, she does kind of need to spend some time living her life without Shepard. Otherwise, it does get a little bit stalkery
Yeah.
to a degree. I do think maybe there needed to be a bit more of a reason as to why she just sort of like just trusted Cerberus with Shepard, and then just sort of went after the broker instead. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like she could have maybe kept closer tabs on Shepard. Again, maybe it makes her a bit more stalkery if she does, but she's kind of crossed that line when she's like determined to search for this man's body, or man, but this person's body, depending on who you are.
Yeah, and it's not like the Alliance had the technology or the ability to bring a Shepard back.
No. Yeah, exactly. And it just kind of, if this many people are saying that Shepard's dead, I mean, if you're obsessed enough to want to see the body yourself, you kind of want to keep tabs, I'd imagine, on the body throughout the entire process, really. Although, actually, you know what? Thinking on it, at the end of that comic, I think she was pretty convinced that Shepard really was dead after seeing the body. But I don't know. I'm pretty sure Miranda hinted that they were going to do something pretty sadistic to try and keep Shepard alive or to bring Shepard back in some capacity. I don't think they said it outright, but they said something that implied it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think there was. You kind of get the Palpatine kind of voice in your head, don't you? It's like there are some abilities that are deemed unnatural.
yeah, Miranda's just looking at the corpse, turning to Liara and said, "Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis Thrive?" But yeah, I think Liara needed some time away from Shepard, and Shepard needed some time away from Liara.
Yeah. Yeah, it did work quite well, and to bring her back for 3 was a good idea too.
As fun as the broker DLC is, I don't think Shepard needed to be there. Like, I feel like that is something Liara could have done on her own.
Yeah, I suppose
Like
it
it,
kind of works better if you've agreed to be a Spectre again, because
yeah,
you're kind of following up on like Spectre business, aren't you?
yeah, I guess so. I just feel like going after the broker is something that's personal to her, and I feel like having her just kind of wait for Shepard to arrive or depend on Shepard again to get her the information she needs to go after him. It's just kind of like, if she's going to become the broker, I feel like she should have found a way to get that information herself.
Yeah,
But I don't know. As I said, I
yeah.
did enjoy doing it.
I like the you get to see her apartment, and again, there's quite a lot of stalkery stuff in there about Shepard, isn't there?
Yeah, she's kind of got a shrine. She's
Yeah,
got a bit of a shrine going. It's
some of his old armor and
yeah. These were Shepard's undergarments that she's got under her pillow.
this was the lollipop stick that Shepard had his very first ice cream from.
She's got a speaker in her door that just says "I should go" when she exits. And
Brilliant.
I think actually, in a way, Liara is kind of too absent to rank her in my top 3 characters. Like, I feel like she's not she's not really that present in 1. I think a lot of characters are kind of just there in 1, and then in 2
Yeah,
she's not there at all. Well, save for the DLC. And then in
yeah,
3 she's kind of in there a little bit more, and it's nice that she's a bit more involved. But I mean, if you think about it, Tully and Garrus are the only ones that are properly explored because they have the benefit of being in 2 as well.
yeah, yeah. It's
Um,
kind of it's tricky, isn't it? Because they want to bring new people in, but you still need that connection to the first game. And who do you bring back and who do you leave out? I think they made the
yeah.
right call with Garrus and Tally, and especially if you leave them to get together and you don't date them. I think that
We can agree to disagree there.
really.
Yeah, because the Tully romance is just too sweet.
She's like a little sister. You can't. Too weird.
See, to me, Liara is like a sister. She's a very strange sister with a strange obsession with you, but she's still a sister. But I mean, like, I'm quite happy, and I'm quite happy with Liara not being in the second game, but I do think at the same time there needed to be a way to have a bit more of an active role in the story in the first game.
Yeah, I suppose for its time as well, it was really good. But you are looking like 2006, aren't you?
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean,
by
it's,
today's standards, it's very bland and very. You talk to them after the mission, and that's it. There's nothing else. You do a mission, you
yeah,
talk to them. You do a mission, you talk to them.
and also I know that the beacon kind of needed to happen at the start of the game, but that's kind of one of those moments where you think, why couldn't I wish Liara could have been there for that. Like, that's a pretty big moment that
Yeah.
you would kind of want to have an archaeologist with you, but I don't know. I'm sure I had more notes now. I'm gonna have a look. I like that, and I don't know if I'll just end up editing this in just to kind of have it fit and feel so random. But in the first game, I think there's something to be said about how when you first meet Liara, she says that she's barely considered older than a child, and no one respects her and treats her seriously and treats her work seriously.
Yeah.
But when you talk to her, you just talk to her like she's an older woman, and you just talk to her like she's any other member of the crew who's considered an adult. And I think she likes the fact that she's being treated seriously and taken seriously. And when she says this, that, and the other about the Protheans, you believe her and you trust her in kind of a way that I imagine her people don't because of her age. And I think that's something to be said in why she cares about Shepard so much as well, is she's kind of, he or she is like the first person to show trust in her and to show to just treat her like a person, not treat her like a child.
Yeah. It's cute that she gets all flustered in one when she's trying to talk to you, and you can see the childlike coming out in her. I just say childlike, but I suppose she would be the equivalent of being like early 20s, wouldn't she? Or
Yeah.
late teens or something. But yeah, you can see that kind of innocence about her coming out when she's getting all flustered talking to you. Contract that with 3, and she's lifting people up with her biotics and then executing them at point blank range. So she's definitely grown.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's still got childlike behaviors, I suppose. Like a child. She's still got a childlike innocence in the first game.
But yeah, for 3, I mean, I do like that kind of memory box thing that she does. I was a bit disappointed that they had gotten rid of the Shadow Broker ship, but they did make a good reason for it. They explained it well.
Yeah, like the elusive man infiltrated her ship or something, and she had to like send it crashing into a sun or something, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. Yeah, I think in general, from your literal first interaction with her on Mars, like you can kind of see that she's grown up and she can handle herself.
Yeah. But you also do still see her vulnerable side, especially like when Thessia has been attacked. Up until that point, it's like, oh yeah, we'll do it, we'll stop him. She's been the tough one, and then as soon as her own home world is attacked, all that kind of facade is gone, and you actually get to see that the war is effective.
Asari's history. The Protheans made it a lie all along, and I abandoned my people to hunt for the catalyst.
You'd never do that.
They're dying by the millions. I told those people on Thessia we'd save them.
How many Asari died?
Because I demanded their help.
None.
Shepard, that isn't true.
You've been warning your people for 4 years, Liara. There's not a
Yeah.
damn thing you should feel guilty about.
I do think a little bit that. I mean, I do really like that moment. I think it does a lot for her character, and I wish more characters had moments like that. But that's exactly, I think, the problem is you get that moment with her. You get a proper cutscene where she's been broken by losing a planet, and you kind of have those moments where you're having these dreams about losing that kid and not being able to save that kid. And it just feels like those are two things that are interwoven to kind of, again, push you to romance Liara, because it's kind of a you being there for her, she being there for you kind of thing. And I just wish it's a great moment. It's a really great moment, and it kind of grounds her a little bit more and not just makes her perfect. But it's a shame you don't get more of that with other companions. You know, the war is affecting everyone, and it's not just affecting her. Like, Tali does have little bits here and there. Like she gets drunk, I think, in one scenario. I can't remember. Oh, I think it was Miranda or something. It was when you go to Sanctuary. For some reason, Tali takes it hard and goes on drinks spree or something. She just drinks herself under the table in the Normandy.
Yeah.
But it just feels like that's a really strange scenario for her to take quite personally. Like I feel like something about her people could have been done to kind of merit that. Like I don't know what, but maybe if they made, because I think Cal Riga, this is a weird tangent from Liara, sorry, but I think Cal Riga dies in like a mail message or something. Like you get an email saying that he's died. I feel like if you got that in a voice message or if you got that in a side mission, that could warrant her to be drinking a little bit more. Like you can't visualize necessarily all the Quarians dying or something. I mean, unless you choose all the Quarians dying, but I think she'll just kill herself. Which makes sense anyway, I guess. But if she hears all these news reports about her people suffering, maybe then that warrants her drinking a bit more. And then you get that in a cutscene rather than just sort of one of those things where you're just kind of lurking and you hear her talking in the room. Like that could have been a full-on conversation or cutscene where she's drinking herself, not to death, but she's drinking a lot.
Yeah.
Because of how much her people are suffering. So you get a little bit more of everyone is struggling and everyone is going through something because of the war. Anyway, it was just another thing to point out. Like, I really like what they did with Liara in that moment, but I do wish they'd done it with everyone else as well.
Yeah. No, that kind of makes sense. But I mean, I suppose everybody kind of handles things differently, don't they? So
yeah, but I don't feel everyone is like tough as nails, though. Either I don't think anyone's really tough as nails in that crew. I think everyone's. I don't know. I just don't feel anyone is tough enough to just shrug off everything that's going on. I know people handle things differently, but even if it's just somebody having a rage fit or something, depending on how they handle that kind of stress, like I don't know,
yeah,
nobody's, and this is kind of offensive to synthetics, but nobody's a robot except from the Geth and ED. But
I mean, even Shepard, she takes a lot, but even in 3, you see them crack at the seams, even to the point where you can snap at Joker and then not even have the opportunity to apologize. So
yeah, exactly. And I do feel like even with Joker, just getting more cutscenes about the situation with his sister as well would be nice. But,
yeah, that was a missed opportunity there.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, in general, I think Liara had a lot of nice moments.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mac Walters, and you're listening to the Lazarus Project podcast.
I'm thinking about the knowledge we gathered on the Reapers, and how easily it could be lost again. So, I put a plan in motion to preserve things for the future. Well, I'll say Commander Shepard was born on Mindwar, but never let what happened there define her. She was a soldier and a leader, one who made peace where she could.
You know that scene where she's creating that time capsule for you, where she's got the whole sort of, she's got an entry about you in this time capsule about like your history and everything you accomplished.
Yeah,
I think
Yeah,
that's
so
a really
it
that's a really
wasn't
sorry.
required, and yet to add it in as a like a little scene, I think it really helps with the story.
Yeah,
It
and
helps her character, showing that she really wants to spread Shepard's word and stuff.
yeah, and I think it does a little bit as well to. I think it does a lot, not just for Liara, but it does a lot for the game and the universe itself. Like at the end of the game, where you've got that kid talking to that older person, like if you didn't have that scene, you might be wondering how they heard about Shepard in the first place. If it's that far ahead in the galaxy, if it's however many cycles it's been, but if they found that time capsule, then yeah, people are going to know about the story of Shepard if somebody's found it,
Yeah,
and it also gives you a good sense of the stakes. Like if Liara's preparing for the scenario where you lose, then it's already got you thinking about the fact that you could lose. Kind of makes you realize how that scenario is very real, and it is real because you can just shoot the kid and say, "Screw you, I'm not making a choice," and then and then yeah, that time capsule actually comes into play in the
Hello,
ending.
Alec. This is Dr. Tassoni. I'm flattered you contacted me. Most scientists dismiss my work, but I'm young and Asari, and they are getting older. So we will see who has the final word. In the meantime, I'm happy to pass along my research. I hope
what did
your
you think
team
about her
finds it
inclusion
useful.
in Andromeda? Is it good, bad, not really needed?
Have you seen her interactions then in Andromeda?
I've heard a few of her voice recordings that she's done.
Mm. I think,
Sh
yeah, I think that's only her only involvement in the game. It just depends on, I guess, if you've listened to all of them. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're all kind of there at the same time in the same place, kind of thing.
yeah,
Um, but I really liked it, and I think it's the right amount for her to be involved in that game because Mass Effect Andromeda had to be something new to people, but also something familiar to other people. And I think it had to be a fresh start, especially with how different the endings could be to 3. But you can't not have anything to do with those 3 games. You kind of need something. And having her in that form, in any form, is important. And I think it was just the right amount. Like having those notes where you just hear her voice, and it's like it's not overplayed nostalgia. Like if you look at all those Marvel movies where Iron Man shows up in 13 movies or something stupid, it's like at a certain point it stops being cool that he can fly.
yeah,
And that's a really stupid example. Um, but I'm just saying, like, when you see her come back, it's a really nice, sweet surprise because she shows up a little bit later at a point when you don't expect her to be there, and it's just the right amount to want to see more, but in a good way. Like she leaves you wanting more of her, but you kind of can't because that time's over. It's time for something new, which is a little bit like of a stupid thing to say now because we know she's coming back, but when she wasn't coming back, it was kind of the right amount of her.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel it's almost kind of shoehorned in to Andromeda. I mean, the amount of people that there are in the universe, it kind of just makes it a little bit more smaller when you've got somebody from the trilogy.
That's fair, but how many people really believed the Reapers were coming
Well, that's true.
and therefore would have prepared for it?
So,
One
and
thing I mean, you played it more recently, didn't you? Have you heard those recordings more recently?
um, no, I'm not this time round.
Okay, because I can't remember if she directly talks to Alec Ryder.
Yeah, she does. It's messages to him.
So she talks to him and he talks back, kind of thing. It's a back and forth conversation.
Yes, I think so. Yes,
Because I was
it's like her side of the conversation, so you don't hear what he said to her, but she like thinks, "Thank you for your recent message."
Oh, okay, so it's not really back and forth.
No,
That would have been nice, I think. I don't know. But I suppose in the way that they did it, it felt more like she was talking to the player, which I think is kind of nice. It's a very clever way, I think, of saying to somebody who doesn't know who she is, this is Liara, some random scientist, talking to Alec Ryder to explore the lore of how the initiative got this, that, and the other. But to people who know Liara, it's Liara, you know? And it's a bit of nice little bit of fan service. To me, at least, it
I
doesn't feel out
suppose
of
so. Yeah,
place. Like it feels like it's there for a narrative reason. It doesn't feel like it's just there to like it's obviously there just for the fans, really. But it also works as its own thing without knowing who she is.
and what do you think of her coming back for 4 then? What do you think her role's going to be?
I mean, why don't you tell me? Why don't you give me your speculation first?
Okay, I think it's either one or two ways for me. When she's walking through the snow, she's either looking for Shepard. Rumor has that survived, you know, and she's now looking for him, which she's done in the past. We know that. Or she's looking for something that Shepard set up, like a device that they had or something, or a MacGuffin or something. And on the way to finding this device, this MacGuffin or something, they come up. That's when she comes across a bit of Shepard's helmet, and that's she's kind of reminiscing of days gone by, that sort of thing. So I think she's definitely looking for someone or something in order to avert the current crisis. I don't. I would be surprised if we played as her. I don't think we will play as her. But yeah, I think that's where she's going to be. She's going to be, as much as I'd like to see it. I really would like to see her being the main antagonist. I think that would be an awesome way for her to finish off. In the words of I can't remember who it is now. But you either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. The Joker, I think it is, isn't it, from Batman?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is absolutely perfect for her. She's gone from being this naive archaeologist type to the Shadow Broker being the most powerful person in the galaxy and saving the galaxy from the Reapers, only to be the one that almost brings it to its knees again. And it's your job to stop her. I think that would be an amazing arc for her to go on. But
I do
she's
think
BioWare's favourite, and she said it's not going to happen.
No. I do think it's a really cool and really interesting idea, though. But yeah, I get the impression that her role's going to be more like the wise person that you talk to on the ship kind of thing, the kind of not grizzled, but the kind of experienced mentor character. Like I think you can still kind of do that arc nicely and have her go from being naive to, because then you've kind of got an arc. You've got her being naive and innocent to being tough and still a little bit vulnerable, to then going into her matriarch years of just being the wise person who guides the next hero kind of thing. And I think there's something quite sweet about that as well.
Yeah.
And I kind of get the impression as well that, well, she's clearly got a Geth companion in the next game in some form. And I don't really believe that she would have this random Geth and be a bad guy. I just don't think. I don't know. I just don't see it like her being a bad guy and then just having, oh, I've got my evil sidekick, this random Geth. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you go through the first game killing however many Geth, and then you've got the sub boss, a Geth. Like it's.
Yeah, it kind of wouldn't really work, would it?
I mean, I think your idea is really cool. I think it would make a lot of sense for a character as well, like especially
It's-
after losing Shepard. But
What else you
yeah,
got to live for?
yeah, yeah, and if you look at how obsessive she is, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I don't think BioWare has. I don't want to say doesn't have the balls to do it, but I think they just love her too much
Yeah.
to write her that way. And I think it's nice, but it's like, yeah, I mean, how powerful could it truly be? But you look at a game like Last of Us Part 2 and suddenly people think, oh, I'm not sure about taking these risks. Like, oh, what if it doesn't pay off? What if it's
Yeah, I
done?
suppose.
What
I
if
mean,
it's
you
done
are gonna,
wrong?
like Mark Walters said in the interview we did with him. And if for anybody listening that hasn't heard that yet, make sure you go back and listen to that because it was a fantastic interview. But yeah, he said that you've got to be careful when you're dealing with characters because you're going to have people that love them and you're going to have people that hate them, and you've got to go through the middle with them. You can't turn somebody into a bad guy because you're going to upset half your community, aren't you?
Yeah, I think he said that about Jacob.
Yeah,
I think it was when you mentioned Jacob in your theory about making him the Kai Leng character.
yeah. For everybody that hate Jacob, there's going to be people that love him, aren't they? So
Yeah, I think you'd be a bit more pressed to find people who like Jacob more than Tali, for example. But yeah, there's definitely going to be people out there that like Jacob, and maybe that's the exact reason. Maybe that's why I would imagine it's probably for the best that they play as safe, just to kind of make the next game a good experience for everyone. Because people have been waiting for a long time. If somebody's a really big fan of Jacob, don't know why they're a fan of Jacob, but if they're a really big fan of Jacob, and then they play the latest game that's taken not sure how many years now, probably 10 years by the time it comes out, since Andromeda, and then Jacob's just not Jacob. Don't know why I'm saying Jacob. I forgot what my point was now. But if a character you really like, it's just like you're waiting this many years and then he turned out to be a bad guy. Liara. I should have just said Liara. If you're a big fan of Liara, she turns out to be a bad guy and you really don't like it, you've been waiting 10 years for that game. That's my point. And I can see that point of like trying to, do service to the fans and stuff.
yeah, that's what it comes down to, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Going a little bit of a step back though, is I do like her involvement with Javik.
See,
No,
been a while since I've played it. I know that she gets frustrated with him, doesn't she? That
yeah, she has
she's
this
not.
big argument. She has an argument after they realize that her her people were essentially given their special abilities from the Protheans, and the people that her people have worshipped are actually Protheans. And then yeah, she kind of has this big fight where Javik's just trying to be blunt and tell her the truth, but Liara's like understandably going through a bit of a crisis, realizing that her whole race's religion is a lie, and she also saw her planet in flames that same day. So it's a lot to go through. But yeah, I think it's a really good combination of having those moments where they're arguing, but also having those insightful conversations as well. Like how she's so it's like she feels like that giddy archaeologist again when she's asking him all these questions when they first meet. I think that's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
And also that whole thing, I don't know if you've I mean you probably did pick up on it, I'd imagine. The emails or the messages back and forth about them writing a book together. I think is it Liara? I think Liara like sends him a bunch of book title suggestions or something like biography suggestions for like the
Yeah, that
life of a Prothean.
you can see that on the computer, can't you? If I remember correctly, or see it on the messages.
Yeah, and then like if Javik actually lives at the end of the game, they go and write that book together, which I think is really quite sweet. Like the archaeologist who studied Protheans for years is going off to write a book with the Prothean that of which the species she's studied for all these years. It's kind of sweet.
Hmm.
And they ride off into the sunset. See, I mean, you've got Tali and Garrus who wind up together if you don't romance them. Why can't we get the Javik and Liara like romance if you don't romance either of them? I mean, no, you can't romance Javik, but you know, like, why is it that Tali and Garrus romance each other if you don't romance them, but Liara is just Liara. If you don't romance her, she doesn't romance anyone.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? I suppose if Bioware, that's once they want you to.
Yeah, they want you to romance her. They're like if she can't be with him, no. If she can't have him, no one can. Oh, he yeah, like it's very clearly like she can't be with anyone if she can't be with Shepard.
She gets very cross, doesn't she? If you reject her.
Yeah, she would be she would be a dangerous ex-girlfriend to have. Like,
yeah, if you romanced her in the first game, and then you reject her in the third one, she gets very cross with you, very snarky.
Yeah, I would like to see a scenario where she just becomes the villain in 3 if you romance somebody else in 2. Like, never mind the Reapers, you've got to deal with Liara in the third game if you've romanced like I don't know Jack or Miranda. But yeah, I think she's a really sweet and kind character deep down, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I do think she's at a disadvantage of, I think, not being in the second game as much. I mean, it kind of contradicts what I said earlier about I like her not being in the second game, but I just think she needed more to go on, I think, than just the heartfelt cutscenes we had in 3.
So, yeah, if you want to wrap up your summary of Liara, then what has your opinion changed of her at all, or are you still where you were at the start of this?
Yeah, I'm still pretty much the same. I think I've never hated her. She still doesn't make my top 5 characters, but she's close enough to there because she's just still a really sweet character and she does have a nice story arc. Yeah, I just think it's it's a difficult scenario. And maybe having her in this next game will do us a favor, and she'll become more of a favorite from playing her in the next game, or working alongside her and seeing her fully grown up. That was a terrible
Yeah.
summary, but so what's
Yeah,
your
I like I say, she's still one of my favorites. If I'm not romancing Caden or Ashley, then it's usually Liara. I don't tend to romance Garrus or Tally. I do like. I mean, it is a bit jarring her personality change, but I can understand they needed to do it to keep her in the games. I really liked her DLC. I thought that was fantastic. I like her appearances in 3. And yeah, I'm quite looking forward to seeing where they take her. I do wish they would turn her into the bad guy, but I say before, I don't think they've got the balls to do it, to be honest. I don't think they would upset their loyal fan base. I suppose they could do it if they gave you the option to turn her good at the end. So you had the option to, like the dark path or the light path, if it was a very well written story. Again, if she was doing something what she believed was for the greater good, but on the flip side was going to cause a lot of pain, you kind of got that moral dilemma then. They kind of, do you save 3 people but condemn an entire world, or do you kill the 3 people and then save an entire world? It's there's no good answer. It's like The Witcher, isn't it? There's no right or wrong answer. It's always bad, or what's the lesser of the worst of 2 evils, sort of thing.
yeah. As I said, I do really like the idea of her being evil. I think it'd be a great new side, an interesting new side of her to see. But yeah, not sure that they would do it, unfortunately.
No. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Romance Tully instead.
No, sister. Romance Ash instead.
Ashley?
Yeah.
I'm not romancing these space races.
Well, that kind of brings us to the end of this discussion. If you have any thoughts or comments or questions or ideas for future podcasts, then you can reach us at the lpcast@outlook.com, or you can message us on Twitter. My handle is at ploppy54, or X now, isn't it? It's not Twitter anymore. Or you can reach Craig on
Twitter using the tag at Craig and his Mac, and I refuse to say X.
Or you can come join the Discord. Again, the link is in the show notes. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for listening.
And we'll see you next time.
Commander.
Brilliant.
Just because
We haven't properly talked about Mass Effect 3, but I would like to just have a quick look at my notes.
Okay, I need a toilet anyway, so while you're doing that, should be 2 minutes.
Okay.
Being treated like an adult, Shep takes her seriously and doesn't talk down to her. She is used to not being treated like an adult. Shep takes her seriously and doesn't talk down to her.
Welcome to the Lazarus Project podcast. In this episode, we're talking... oh no. What are we doing?
We are talking
Yes.
Tim, 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 Tim.
Oh, I can see you flashing, but I can't hear you.
Oh God! Hello, 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 hello.
Nope. I'm kind of just making noises.
What? Well, Tim has left me. But while we wait, here are some fun facts about Comrade Ferner. Whilst originally Comrade Ferner does not seem to have anything remotely approaching a useful skill, during his last appearance he reveals out of the blue that he holds a PhD in high-energy physics. In fact, Comrade turns out to be the author of a hotly debated thesis about the effect of dark energy on the passage of time.
Hello, I'm back.
Hello.
I don't know what happened there.